Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Echoes of the Soul radio show brought to you by Matrix Productions Media. I am Dagny Grant, and I'm here with my co-host, the amazing Beth Donnelly.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Beth, how are things in the Portland area today?
Oh, it's sunny. It's beautiful weather today. We're very grateful.
Beth and I are really excited to share a conversation with you today that we're going to talk with someone whose work we both admire very much, and that is Robert Gene Smith, the creator of FasterEFT and Eutaptics. Thanks so much for joining us today, Robert.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out.
We're going to have some fun today. But no, I want to tell our audience a little bit about you, Robert, before we begin to ask you questions. So let me start by telling everybody that Robert is the creator of FasterEFT and CEO of Skills to Change Institute. He conducts workshops and training seminars internationally, with many of which you can watch parts of on YouTube, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Robert has been a seeker of truth for the last 40 years, and he has a passion for what actually works. It must be logical, and it must be practical. Now, over the years, he has studied modalities such as NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, TFT, thought field therapy, EFT, emotional freedom technique, Psych-K, this wonderful system developed by Robert Williams, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, and a lot more. Now, Robert has really upped the ante, I'm telling you, with modalities. He's taken the best from these areas of study and in combination with his own experience and innate wisdom and transformed them into a beautiful system called FasterEFT and Eutaptics. So we are so happy to have him here to tell us all about what he's up to today. Now, Robert, you combined a lot of different modalities, like I just said, with your unique stuff to come up with this program. Can you tell us a little bit about that process for you? And the original meaning of EFT is emotional freedom technique, which is a little bit different acronym for you. Can you just talk to us about FasterEFT, what that means for you, and how this kind of all came about?
Well, of course, my story to where I am today is it's a long story, but a short story is want to solve my problems first and foremost. I actually want to solve my wife's problems, so to fix my problems. Didn't work that way, but raised up by a grandmother who took me to church, and then evolving into NLP by a tape course at a garage sale. And then I found EFT, Emotional Freedoms Technique. Now, of course, I bought the course in April of '99. And of all the courses, I studied hypnosis before this and definitely NLP. But EFT was something that was profoundly effective because of one major piece. I will share that later. And so Emotional Freedom Technique was taught by Gary Craig. He had his home study course and also his Ultimate Therapist course. If you don't know anything about the history of EFT, EFT has gone through some transitions. And at one time, EFT, Gary said you can't be using emotional freedom techniques. And I think it was because, and then there was lawsuits against Gary. Then Gary, at that point when he said you couldn't use emotional freedom techniques, I'm going, what do I call this? It's EFT, it's all I know. So then I thought, well, I'll call it electronic file transfer, EFT. Then I thought, well, it needs to be something better than that. So I came up with my own acronym, which is emotionally focused transformations. And then after at one point the lawsuits were against Gary, he gave EFT to the world. I already changed the name. So I could be teaching emotional freedoms technique, my own version, which is what I teach today is an evolution of many processes, because, I started out, studying, going to the church. My grandmother had tricked me. She said, I'll let you drive the car only on Sundays and Wednesdays when the church doors are open. So that's my exposure. And then by accident, truly it was by accident, but I bought a book after my grandmother had bought me an encyclopedia, which is psychology something. I asked her, I said, because I had these nightmares. So I bought this book, and in this encyclopedia set, I discovered erogenous zones. And I thought, and I went to this bookstore and I saw this book, erogenous zones. I thought
Wayne Dyer, right?
Wayne Dyer's erroneous zones.
Erroneous.
So it was totally different. Of course, you know, my spelling and reading at that time wasn't so great, but I was ready to learn something. And what I learned in this book shifted my perceptions of things, which then in turn over the years has been a catalyst for viewing things differently. So a short story, that's the shortest way I can get to why I called it emotionally focused transformations. Now, of course, at that one point, you know, I try to figure out, what do I name this, you know, because I always thought it was EFT. I didn't know, you know, on the course, the Ultimate Therapist course, he said, you know, he had Fred Gallo, Larry Nims, all these guys. He said, just go and improve it, you know. And so my thinking is I'm going to be a part of the EFT group.
Right.
It never happened, but I created my own stuff. So.
Well, that's a great story. And I have to tell you that Dagny and I are both fans of your work, and we're very happy to be talking with you today. And what I wanted to ask you, first of all, is can you explain how our sensory memories and emotions, how they're connected to our pain and illness?
Right. Well, if you understand how the mind works, all right, so basically the mind is, now we talk about the mind, we talk about the brain is the mechanical part. When I talk about the mind, I'm talking about the smartest part about you. And that's not what I'm talking with right now. The smartest part about each and every one of us is what works in the background beyond our conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. You know, like today, you know, like your clothes you're wearing, your glasses, everything you have, you think consciously you picked it, and unconsciously it picked it. And we think we're making a decision, but we're only making a decision based on what their unconscious holds. And so this is the premise, you know, because, you know, illnesses or no love or the feeling of being rejected and depression are all successes. Success is built from the unconscious. And, you know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see the fact that, first of all, when you think something, your body follows. It just happens. You know, and science has also proven that 75 to 90% of all doctors' visits are stress emotional complaints. So when I have someone to come and see me, like they have, like for example, there's a young girl who came, I just finished Greece and seminar in Greece. And this young girl, I don't say how old is she, 37 years old. And 2 weeks prior to coming to the FasterEFT training, she had to be in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk. She had a cyst or a tumor on her spine, and she had pain in her right leg. All right. It means, and so she went to the doctor, and they put, I don't know what it's called, like an implant attached to her spinal column and to the nerve, and it has a battery, and this battery sends shock down her right leg to try to deal with her pain. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is what her condition before she flew to Ireland to do a session with a practitioner of mine, which is Deirdre McGuire. And so with FasterEFT, we have an understanding that the mind and the body are one. The body is an honest expression of the unconscious recordings. All right. So she goes and she's wheelchaired to and from plane to plane and, you know, to the car. And then she comes to see Deirdre. Now, Deirdre and I create a system on how you figure out how it works. Now, there's a book I use. There's a couple of books. One of them is by Louise Hay, Heal Your Body. That's one I started with. Yes. And then another one is called The Secret Language of the Body by Ina Segal. Now, basically, both of these books are it's like body language. The mind will speak to the body through its emotional recordings and belief systems. And so, you know, if we look at the body is an honest expression of the unconscious mind beyond our conscious awareness. And if you were to look at the conscious awareness, this conscious awareness is about the skin deep of our face. Mm-hmm. The unconscious is everything behind the skin, which is what drives the whole system. So when I look at somebody, I have what we call the art of change process, which elicits unconscious resources. I know it's a big, long story to get to the point.
No, it's fine.
No, it's okay. But before you go on, you said the art of what?
Change.
Art of change.
Art of Change, which is a registered trademark. It's a system in which I created that we can elicit unconscious strategy to change any problem, which pain would be considered a problem, addiction is a problem. And it's, of course, in our belief system, and my belief system is there are no problems, just undesirable successful outcomes. And so now we're going to start looking. So we know that so here we are, we look at this young woman and we look at her body. Her body is screaming to us. It's telling its own truth. And so by using Louise Hay, Ina Segal's book, the body will communicate to us. It'll tell us what's behind the eyes, which is what's going on in the background. Basically, addressing memories and belief systems, the body changes. Now, of course, there's a structure to it, you know, like with this young lady. I can't really tell all her stuff except what was displayed in seminar, but basically we dealt with a father issue, which right represents male. And of course, in a live presentation, we dealt with the father issue. The father is on the right side, not necessarily father. It could be representing male issues or giving, brother, uncle, whoever. Now, it's really the unconscious mind, because the unconscious mind will encode memories, create emotional links and behaviors, and then the body will communicate. So by merely addressing this from day 3, when she arrived in Ireland, she couldn't walk with her walker, but now she's walking. And then day 4, she's walking without her walker. Right now she comes to Greece and she's walking without a walker now. Before, she was in a wheelchair 5 days before that. So then by the time we get, you know, I did a personal session with her and also did an upfront live session. And at that live session, see, she has this implant in her rump, in her butt. And all I did, and at 0 to 10, it was an 8-level pain. And by the time I'm done, less 15, 20 minutes later, the pain's completely gone. And she's now going down the stairs. And on Friday, she's actually dancing on the dance floor. And 2 weeks before that, there's rolling around in a wheelchair. All we did is address unconscious memory and belief system and how the mind will hold itself to express what's honest in the body. So the body is an honest expression of the unconscious resource, except one part of the body. And this part of the body is the mouth. It does lie.
That's pretty incredible, Robert. When you mentioned this story to begin with, Dagny and I were listening to some of your videos, and I believe that we actually heard one because she talked about
we watched that video
first in Ireland, and then with you after that. And what struck me by some of the stuff that she talked about first was that she used gratefulness as a tool for like 3 days, as she was able to, like you were saying, move from the wheelchair to walking, that sort of thing. So I was wondering, maybe that was sort of one of my questions that I wanted to ask you about. Can you talk about the power of gratitude in the process of healing?
Well, you have to understand, for her, this one area would be grateful. For you, it may not be gratefulness. It may be judgment, or it may be anger, or it could be something else. So there is an element that we use in the Happy Journal about grateful, or in affirmations. But you have to understand, with the Art of Change, it's tailored to each individual. And for her, I wasn't in her session, so I don't know exactly what it was, but there was something in her life that represented ungrateful. So like with yourself, you may come up and there may not be an element of ungratefulness in you that we're addressed. We may address anger, or we may address abandonment, or we may address the death of your dog. All depends on how you represent it. So you can't really say universally it's all grateful or ungrateful that causes the problem, because again, there's many minds and or that are listening to my voice will have their own internal formula to create their pain. You know, you see in the videos, if you watch the video, you'll also see Heather McKean dancing with her at the end of the video. Now, Heather McKean was 5 years ago was in bed. The chiropractor adjusted her just so she can get out of bed, fly to Oklahoma. Now she had Lyme disease. She had fibromyalgia. She had a Pott's disease. She had a long stack of medical problems.
We've watched Heather's videos as well. Remarkable. One of the most remarkable cases I think I've seen on your videos so far.
Pretty incredible.
Her story is unbelievable.
And you know, the nice thing about me doing this for her, she works for me. She's running my company now. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
thank you for addressing that you deal with whatever the personal issue is of that particular person.
Yeah, because
so
it's unique.
in that case, it was gratefulness, but in someone else's case, it may be anger or fear.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Happy Journal. Talk a little bit about the Happy Journal for a minute.
Well, I created the Happy Journal thought and idea because of, because I'm not trained psychologist. I have no training in psychology. I did take Psychology 101 in college. I passed. And that's my thing.
You passed.
So it gave me qualifications to help psychologists and their children. But how I came up with this idea of the Happy Journal is since I'm coming from the dark, basically. I come from NLP, which is the structure of thinking, which is my thinking system. And then EFT is a tapping protocol. It's an energy-based system, which is not my system. But the tapping and why does the tapping work and how to create changes without even tapping. I forgot where I was going.
Happy Journal.
Happy Journal. So now here it is. I have people in my office. This one lady specifically, as a matter of fact, she, amongst others, her name is, I'll call her Kat, has laid a foundation for my understandings. And so here she is on my green couch in my office. And my whole purpose is to figure out why we have problems, the cause of all problems, and how to change it. So she is sitting on my couch, and for 20 years, she's been on antidepressants, and she's severely depressed, and she's crying. And she goes, I just want to know why. I spent all this money. I can have 2 homes for the amount of money I spent in therapy. Why am I so screwed up still? And at that point, I knew. Before that, I didn't know. And I said, it's birth. That's why. The cause of all problems is birth.
Because you were born.
And then she looked at me, she goes, huh? I said, no, seriously. She goes, why am I so screwed up? I said, because you're good at it. You're doing the right things. And then I said, let's look at what you're doing and what are you using? And what I discovered that people do who are depressed are doing the right things to be depressed. And
which
so,
I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's what you meant when you said that these synapses that are firing are a success. They're successfully firing on exactly the journey that we're on. And it's just about shifting that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the most important thing is that, there's some weird thinking out there about, especially in the energy, spiritual world stuff. And I have to be honest about this. It's like, for example, something bad will happen to a child. Did the child attract this? I said, no, they're just born in the wrong place and they were at the right place at the wrong time and this happened. And so it happened, but that child then encodes this experience and starts creating a life from it. And how it's encoded determines what will happen to their future. And so she's sitting in my office and she's saying, why am I so depressed? And I figured out that depressed people do the right things. And I said, do you have a happy memory? And she goes, I know there's going to be something. And then I go, well, do you have a good reason why you should be depressed? She goes, there's so many options to choose from. Which told me inside the mind of someone who's miserable, they have miserable resources ready and available.
Sure.
And so then I thought, well, if people are successfully making themselves depressed by looking and saying and all these things, let's redo it, do it differently. So I give them an assignment. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to go home and write down 22 happy memories. And they come back the next week. And there was nothing done. And I thought, because it screwed up your misery.
Right.
Your depression.
It's one of the things that I love that you say to folks sometimes is, who would you be without this?
Yeah, I'd say better off, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest question. Yeah, that's the biggest question people often say. Well, if I change my bad memories, who will I be? And I said, better off. You have to work harder to feel bad. Right. Because see, the problem is that we create an identity based on a bad experience instead of a good experience. And the reason is because the bad experience is trying to keep us safe, but also keep us enslaved and recycling our misery. So I said, okay, let's do the happy journal. So they wouldn't do the happy journal. And I said, okay, you're going to come in the office and you and me are going to create a happy journal. We're going to help you unscrew up your life. And we start rewriting stories. And then we start doing, there's several elements to the happy journal because, again, my life, your life, are those who are listening to us, lives are experiencing from what they captured from the past.
Well, that's one of the things that I want to ask you specifically is, Einstein's been quoted as saying that we can't solve a problem with the same mindset we used to create it. And re-imprinting is one of the things that you speak about, recreating our memories. And one of the things that you've said that I think is really brilliant is that our memories are all a lie anyway. So why not choose the lie that serves us?
Yeah.
It just, and a lot of people would be so offended by that because it's, well, my memories are real, my pain is real, my sickness is real, I've got all these medical files to prove my diagnoses. So here, and I love the way you handle that kind of stuff. So talk a little, you use a different word than re-imprinting. What is the word that you use?
Well, we do re-imprinting. We use re-imprinting, memory reconsolidation, or flipping the memory. Which is what we do. Now, see, most people misunderstand or don't even know how their mind works. The mere act of visiting a memory, just visiting the memory, any memory, the memory is adjusted by the mere act of visiting. Now, let's say you're feeling miserable and your boyfriend dumped you, your girlfriend dumped you, and you're feeling really bad. And you go, why am I feel so bad? And your mind goes, oh yeah, remember what happened to you at school? And so now you're feeling really bad. You go back to this experience or a false memory, a memory you never had, but your mother said, when you were born, your father was drunk, and that's why. And all of a sudden, you don't even remember this, but your mother created a false memory, and now you play this full cinema of what happened to you when you were born, and you don't even remember it. And then you start taking these bad feelings, and you look at another memory, and just the act of going to the memory, you actually encode the memory different when you put it back and you walk away from it. And each time, it's what we do. We distort our memories. And the weird thing is you're sitting around the dinner table, you're talking to your family, and they're talking about an event that you were there, and there's 5 stories, different stories, same event.
Right.
So. And
then you remember it, and then you add to it, and you morph it a little bit based on what you smell, taste, see, touch, hear right now in this moment.
Exactly.
You recreate that synapse a little bit differently this time, and then a little bit differently next time. And right? I mean, isn't that kind of how you describe it?
Exactly. And here's another thing too, is one of the things I see some of the biggest problems is that people, like if you were shot in the leg and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, boy, I bet that hurt. You go, yes, it hurts really bad. So what he'll do is he'll pull a gun out and shoot you in the same spot and says, does it feel better? And it doesn't feel better. If you rehearse over and over again the bad feelings, you can actually make it 10 times worse. Like the guy who came to see me, he's been in therapy for 7 years. He went to a professional, and he had one fear, and that was the fear of trees. And so by the time in 7 years, he had 20 different fears. Because each time you would add the fear and expand the fear, create more fears, and next thing you know, he couldn't hardly do anything. Because see, the mind, our essence, our true essence within each and every one of us at the moment of birth, we start to capture, organize, and create. If somebody asked me, well, who are we really? I said, you're a creator. That's it. You'll take in, you'll organize, and you'll create a life. You'll create misery, you'll create money, you create depression. Successfully so. And it's built from where you came from. So
I certainly can see that, what you're talking about. But I guess I'm wanting to know how you actually form new neural pathways. I know there are a lot of different ways to do it. And you were talking about the woman who you gave the job to do a gratitude journal. She never did it. And it kind of seems to me that when a person gives themselves the permission, to be free from their emotional, the emotions that cause their pain, and it's hard to do sometimes. They're very comfortable with their pain. But I think when they make that step, it's really important. So I was wondering if you could talk about that transition.
Okay, that's a good one. As I said earlier, there's two parts of us. One, we have the consciousness, and two, we have the unconscious. Now, the unconscious is much smarter than you are consciously. There's how many of you have actually made a decision on New Year's Day that you're going to create a new life, you're going to stop, or you're going to start and do something.
Right.
And it didn't take very long, and the whole thing's just just gave up.
Out the window.
All right, so a lot of people, I speak about things that they've heard before. The missing piece actually is what I call in the grunt work. And the grunt work is actually going to the source and changing and releasing and transforming the link that built the problem in the first place. Now, this is so subtle that sometimes you can't even see it, but when you understand how the mind works, it's obvious. And so what the deal is in order for you to change, we have a tendency in our, I don't know about you, I've tried many therapies, I've tried many things. It didn't work. It felt good, but it still didn't work. And the missing piece is the piece that actually is what I call in my system bad, good collapse, which means you have a bad feeling, a bad memory, a bad reference, and you have a good feeling, a good reference. Once they fire off and they rewrite and change the actual source, and now you can't find the original, you only find the new source, behavior shifts. Because again, there is you actually rewrite it neurologically. That means it happened consciously, but there's no reality to it physically and internally. It's like I read a book, I stopped at a stop sign, but it doesn't mean anything until there's value, and there's also links, what we call emotional unconscious links. Once they're broken and they put in a proper place, behavior naturally changes. It's like the lady who had a severe chocolate addiction. I mean, this is so severe. Children would get candy for Easter, Halloween, Christmas. They have to hide the chocolate.
Uh-oh.
Because mom she'll wake up in a midnight with a flashlight in her hand, crawling around those kids' rooms trying to find their chocolate.
Oh, no.
In spite of the tears and crying when mom did find them. But this is irrational, crazy behavior. And she just can't take a bite. She licks the bowl. I mean, it's gone.
Addiction. If you're not addicted, if you've never had an addiction, you just really don't understand. And I'm not saying that directly to you. I'm just saying to our audience. I mean, I used to be addicted to cigarettes, and there's nothing about cigarettes that makes any sense. Nothing. But it decided where I would go, how long I would be there, who I would go with for years. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So I watched you work with people, and it's brilliant. The work that you do with people on this stuff is just brilliant, Robert.
So like with addiction, smoking addiction, like a chocolate addiction, she came up and then 10 minutes later, the addiction's completely gone.
Gone.
Here's the key. Here's the key to smoking, to chocolate, to any other addiction. Is there's many pieces, like say a smoker, for example. Before you smoke, you have no nicotine addiction. You smoke the first cigarette, usually isn't very good, but you want to look cool, you want to be accepted, you want to be a part of the team.
I worked really hard
to this addiction level of nicotine, and the moment nicotine starts coming out of your system, anxiety starts going up. Next thing you know, you got to hit a cigarette, and it relaxes the addiction. Now your brain is smoking creates relaxation. Smoking means friends and family. These are the emotional addictions. Physically, the physical addiction to cigarettes is a 3-day experience. After 3 days, you're not physically addicted. Exactly. It's the emotional unconscious links. It's like with the chocolate. I tapped on her and I addressed a major emotional memory. 1, feeling love when someone gave her chocolate. And 2, when she was a teenager, she won a trip to Europe, and she was feeling all alone and lonely, and she discovered Belgian chocolate, which, by the way, had the link of love and family and friends. All of a sudden, she became controlled with this chocolate experience until I worked on her. The chocolate could sit on the dinner table. It could sit there all week. There's not a struggle. There's not a fight. She could take a bite and enjoy it. Only one. And no trouble fighting it, because the links are broke. And that's the key to really creating is bad, good collapse. Once you create the collapse and have a different imprint in your mind, behavior changes.
Now, what's the difference between tapping, physically tapping, or doing it mentally, or talk therapy? Can you explain a little bit of that? Because the end result seems to be.
There's a pattern that the brain goes. Now, my system's built on one basic premise. Whatever you think, your body follows. This system works because in the brain there's a synapse, and the brain starts sending to the body, and you start responding unconsciously. Your body starts down through your chest. So this system works. So what I discovered, all changes happen, no matter if it's talk therapy, hypnotherapy, rock therapy, alcohol therapy, beating furniture therapy, banging your head against a wall therapy, anything. All changes happen only one way, and that is bad good collapse. Once the link has been broke and the emotional trigger or the emotional link is no longer there, behavior naturally changes. And so the reason why tapping does work, and you don't have to use tapping. You can see on my videos, I used a phone app to destroy and change a rape memory. I don't know what number that is, but there's a phone app that I changed it, and it totally changed the rape memory in 12 minutes.
Wow.
And 3 weeks later, she talks about it, said, yeah, it doesn't even bother me. With a phone app.
Wow.
And then of course there's other things where you can use, there's so many ways, but the reason why tapping is so profound is because of how the brain works. The mind and the body work together. This is the communication signal, the reaction. And so we use tapping, or we can use, I use a phone app. I can use anything. I can use a joke. I can crack a problem with a joke. But the main thing is a thorough and completeness of a change, and that is a testing and retesting. So there's many ways of doing it. I always say all therapies are useful and beneficial. Some will take you a long time to get the complete change, and some are very fast. And my opinion is faster is better, because you don't have to spend all your time spending money on therapy. You could be spending money on a trip to Greece or something fun.
Right. Faster is better, right? One of the things that it would seem that one of the first things that a person needs to do is actually surrender their paradigm, in order to allow a new interpretation of that history, and that tapping our resistance sometimes to change is the very first step. And I'm wondering if that's why you often start with the first few rounds of it's okay to let it go before you even start to verbalize the memory or ask them to kind of, really emotionalize.
So there's many ways that I do sessions. Of course, a lot of the things you see on YouTube is not what I consider a real session. This is a live public demonstration.
Sure.
Right.
All right, so when I do a real session, I have a complete, thorough understanding of how they have the problem is created, and how it's generated. Now, when I do a live presentation, first of all, they've already heard me speak. I lay the foundation, and I do know this is that if you, my philosophy is this: get the guy with the match in his hand, which means you can put out all the little fires, but once you find the guy with the match in his hand, you end all the fires.
Right.
And so one of the things is that when I have somebody come up, there is what you call the fear of letting go, the fear of going there, and the fear of whatever. And so I always say inoculate the problem before you get to the problem. That way it makes it easier. And the art of change, that system, is so powerful that it can go into any area of your person's life, any problem, pull out their strategy and totally completely rewrite the story without me knowing what it is. I remember a lady called me up and she said she has agoraphobia, and I'm thinking spiders. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll have an appointment on Wednesday or Thursday. She said, Robert, you don't understand. I have agoraphobia. I said, okay, we'll bring it with you.
Agoraphobia.
All right, agoraphobia, but I was like, spider. So anyway, so I have people who come to see me who have bizarre ailments and problems, like Paul. He had 13 angiograms where it went to the nerve of his leg, went to his brain, put stents in there. And of course, the doctor says you have nerve damage, you'll have it the rest of your life, you'll always have pain. And of course, I pull out his strategy. I address his wife, the divorce. I develop his attitude about himself, and he has hate for the medical doctors. And in less than 2 hours, the pain's completely gone. And then he comes back 3 or 4 weeks later, he gives me a stack of paper. See, look, I'm supposed to have pain, and there's no pain there. There's nerve damage, and there's no pain. And so it's working with your mind. And what I invite people to do is say, learn how you think. Learn how your mind works. Learn how to make peace with your inner world. Because, see, it's your inner world, which you're unconscious, and the mechanics. If you know the mechanics of your mind and you understand how the unconscious works differently than our consciousness, and you don't make friends with that, then you can create anything in your life. And that's what I'm after, teaching people how to be in control of themselves. You know, they say, you know, know thyself. Well, this is the ultimate know thyself program. It's mindfulness.
What's one of the things that is just mind-bending to a lot of people is, how do you tell someone that has had fibromyalgia, for example? 5 doctors have diagnosed them with fibromyalgia, and within a half an hour of you tapping, it's gone. How do you even describe that that's possible to someone? Because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And how many lists? We got lots of people. I mean, I don't know how many, a bunch of people who used to have fibromyalgia with my system, and now they don't. Yeah. Because again, there's even research. I couldn't remember the guy's name. I was watching this stuff. I was like, oh, that's some good research showing that how a lot of this chronic pain can never be fixed with drugs. And they use the best drugs, they still can't fix it because it is not physical. It's unconscious, mental.
It's your I am. You've owned it as part of your identity, and so it is.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with identity.
No?
I will say it's a program in the unconscious trying to keep you safe. That's it. And it's also unresolved emotional issues. Then you can create you an identity, get a tattoo on your ass, and write a book and join groups with it. But it's just a program.
Gotcha. Too funny.
It's the unconscious mind that's doing the work.
And it's doing it to save you. It's doing it to protect you.
Right.
And it's also doing it to keep you in alignment with what you've captured and not changed or resolved. You know, that's the biggest key.
Unless you want something different so badly that you're ready for that change.
And you know, it's yes, that's true. And it is bizarre working with people who they have created an identity with this. And you know, it's like somebody comes in and this pain is my mother. You know, they wouldn't say that, but it is a representation of the relationship with their mother. And once you go and change the mental relationship, because mother's dead and gone, you know, mother's dead and gone, but everywhere she goes, her mother shows up because of her own representational system.
Yeah.
So once we change this, their world begins to change. The relationship with themselves change. Their mind and their body changes, and the relationship with other people change. And that's learning how, I always say, you know, learn how to love yourself from inside yourself, which means change everything inside your mind that is unpleasant, turn it into good, release the bad first. Because see, again, some people will paint the white wall and all their crap is right behind the wall, and they're standing in this thin paper between the two, and it doesn't take much to trip and fall back into the stuff. But if you go to the memories, make peace with your mind and what you captured, that's the key. And I think one of the biggest things, if I could say anything to anybody, that this one simple idea, everything in you is you. When you have a memory of your mother or your husband or your ex-husband or the abuser or the abusee, they're not in your head. This is just recorded data in your every part of the memory. You're the player, the actors, the movie director, and if you're tired of it, change it. If with skill, you got to learn how to do it. And that's the reason why I do trainings. You know, I have all these videos free on YouTube. I have an online training where people can actually learn how to like themselves, learn how to change themselves. And it's the foundation of everything I do.
That's really great. You know, I think a lot of people just don't believe that they have the power to change their thoughts and their emotions and thus change their life.
Well, the technologies have changed over the years. You know, of course, if you spent money, years in therapies, and you beat furniture, you did rock healing, and you did all these things, and you still got the problem. The problem is that you're not going to where the problem is.
Right.
You know, You know, I came up with a quote this morning. Where you find the biggest resistance, you'll also discover your biggest healing once you walk through it.
Because that's where it is.
Yeah. What you're afraid of is what drives your system. And so, you know, we have, as you can probably see on my YouTube videos, is that I just go right, if I just figure out where it is, I go the right one and I just nail it. Once we hit the big one, we clear that one out. All the other ones will just fall on the wayside.
You seem to know where to find it. That's for sure. You do it quickly.
I listen.
You listen. Yes, exactly.
And ask questions.
That's right.
Right. Well, while we're talking about this, let me just thank everybody that you can find out more about Robert's trainings and his work and what he's up to and where he's his events and all of that stuff at FasterEFT.com. And he's got like literally about 1,300 videos on his YouTube channel that is all free training. Some of it is his seminars, some of it is him literally working with people. And just you know, he'll go to these fabulous places in Ireland or Greece or the UK and do these beautiful videos in these amazing places. So it's really fun to watch his videos. If you just go to YouTube and type in Eutaptics, you're gonna find his channel. So just to keep it simple there, right?
Robert Jean, FasterEFT.
Right, exactly. So,
Okay.
So yeah.
For all of our listeners out there, go listen to Robert. Pretty amazing. You know, dealing with the present release of emotional, I feel like entanglements in a person's, you know, web of neural networks. You do that, dealing with those things in the past. How does it affect a person's ability to move forward, to connect with, you know, just making healthier choices, decisions, and thinking, and just in their being?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier today, I said everything we choose is built from what we've already held within ourselves. And if I were to say, if you want to get a better life, what I recommend is looking at your past experiences, the memories of hurt and pain, change those, re-imprint those, rewrite those. And as you do that, what naturally is going to happen without thinking, like the lady with the chocolate, she couldn't even have chocolate in her house. Once we addressed her memories or her attachments, there's no struggle with chocolate. It sits there. There's no pull, there's no fight.
That makes sense.
Your self-esteem and your self-value comes from your esteeming self, which is what you hold within yourself and how you represent yourself inside yourself in all and every memories you hold. And so to esteem yourself, to get a better life, a better decision, change your references. You know, it's called, you know, we talk about education. You know, you put new stuff in, but if you go inside, you know, law of attraction says you get from what you hold within. It's not what you're trying to put in. So if you go inside yourself,
right,
and look at the areas that you're afraid of and change it to where there's peace there, and then your brain will say, I have a new option to choose from. I choose from peace.
It's one of the things I love about you grabbing this you know, a group of the Meridian system and have the oxygenate and then say peace. It's I love, that's one of my favorite parts, I gotta say.
That's your favorite part.
So energetically delicious, you know, in what that literally does to us as an energetic being. It's that's just, you know, that's you know, speaking of the Meridian system, one of the things that you have said in videos is that you don't really believe in blocked energy. A lot of people say that if we have like arthritis, say that it's blocked energy in our knees or whatever. And you've said that you don't really think of it that way. You think of it more as the body is expressing stress in that area of your body. Could you just describe a little bit for folks for all of our blocked energy friends? Because we've got the woo-woo crowd, believe me.
Yeah, I know. I love the woo-woo crowd. They're fun. But see, the truth is, if you know anything about energy, energy cannot be blocked. All right, first of all, energy is a flowing process. It doesn't stop. It always flows. And so whenever you have what you would solve, you know, you'd say a blocked energy, you have a disruption or an unhealthy feeling. Now, this feeling is a positive production from the unconscious. Right. So this feeling. The knees represents being stubborn, not wanting to bend and change, fear of moving forward. And so these are emotional belief systems built from your unconscious. It reminds me of Maria. Now, Maria, she's an energy person. I go to an energy group, and I've been doing seminars using their facility for 8 years. And I see Maria. Now, Maria is a big, heavyset woman with big eyelashes, fake wig, and she walks with a walker. And she started having these massive panic attacks. And she booked a session, and she couldn't make it. The session she couldn't. I said, listen, Marie, there's people waiting in line for these sessions. And so she'd come to see me, and she says, I'm a light giver. And I said, okay, because I know about energy people. I said, what does that mean? And because, again, it's a belief system. She says, well, when I go to someone's home, they don't have a pretty lamp, or they have no lamp at all. I put them a good lamp on there. I said, okay, that sounds good. And then I go on, and then she's having these horrible panic attacks. She says, I think I'm allergic to lights, fluorescent lights. I get this severe reaction and panic attacks. And come to find out, I won't go into detail, there was an emotional link of being abused looking at the lights. Oh. Not one time, but many times. And so she's looking at the lights, and bad things are happening to her. So her unconscious mind linked lights with bad things. And so it took me one session to clean up these horrific memories. And her husband calls me weeks later. He's very unhappy with me. He goes, Robert, Maria's not home. She's out shopping. Before she couldn't shop.
Before she couldn't go into any of those stores with fluorescent lighting.
Because she's allergic to lights, fluorescent lights, and now she's having fun.
Wow.
She's a shopper now.
That's amazing.
Great.
And that she chose to be a light giver as...
It was a metaphor. See, again, the brain is so metaphoric.
Wow.
So metaphoric. It's so, it's a weird thing. It's like you hate something, but you keep dating them.
Right.
You know, it's like you love your father, you hate your father, and you keep dating controlling freaks, or the alcoholics, or whatever. And it's all because of unconscious links. And if you don't break the link, you commit the emotional suicide.
You have to keep doing it over and over again until you've learned the lesson
until you die miserably.
Or die.
Or let you heal and release it, transform it,
That would be the good one. Heal and transform.
But you have to understand, even with the panic attacks, even with the miserableness and the depression, you have to understand, according to the brain, the unconscious mind, it's an intelligent idiot. It doesn't say it's bad or good. It just keeps you in alignment with the system you grew up with. And it's a self-protective mechanism. It's keeping you safe. It's keeping you a good member of the family and the society where you came from. And since you moved away, it's still trying to protect you. And it's basically driven out of love and security. And it's a survival system. And once, I come from the church, and of course, the cause of all problem is sin. And then I went to the metaphysical group, and the cause of all problem is ego, or the saboteur. The truth is, none of that's true. The truth is that the saboteur is our own consciousness not working with the smartest part about us, and that's our unconscious. When you make friends with how your unconscious works, you can create the life of your dreams, way beyond you could ever imagine. But it does start with knowing yourself and making friends with what you do inside yourself, to yourself, by yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's all happens inside. It's an inside job. Dagny and I always say that.
An inside job. That's right. Wow. I love that. That was really brilliant. I may have to quote you on that in social media.
We have to play this back and write it down.
Yeah, that's about to be a meme. Just saying. Fairly recently, you expanded your work to include the name Eutaptics, and I'm wondering if you could explain the difference between FasterEFT and Eutaptics, and kind of how all that comes together in your work.
Well, with EFT, so I come from EFT, I come from NLP. EFT, of course, anybody can train EFT. Anybody can do it. You can create your own group, and so there is not what you call a standardization. There's many people say they have their own, but they're all different groups. And so with FasterEFT, I've been the only trainer. And what I know in 2017 compared to what I knew in 2002 It's massively different. And I have created practitioners for many years. Well, if you're a 2002 practitioner compared to 2017, they're miles apart. And so what I did is with Eutaptics, I'm creating what you call a high-level standardization with high-quality practitioners who go through the system. Because see, if you get a 2000,
you have a 7-step coursework to become a certified FasterEFT.
well, no, you can be certified. You know, you can be certified you completely certified at level 4. You can be working on people level 3.
Gotcha. Okay.
But and the reason is because let's say there's 5 people. One of them, a lot of people come to my work because one, they got a lot of problems. They've already tried everything. They like my stuff, and now they want to heal themselves. And in the past, you know, we'd give them a certificate because that's what I learned from the EFT model. They completed the course, they slept through the course, they suffered, endured, and they sweated, and they had all the problems. They went through the course, they got a certificate of FasterEFT. Well, with Eutaptics, it doesn't happen that way. You actually have to be tested, retested, and make sure you know what you need to know. And that is because you can see where I come from. I come from EFT, I come from church, I come from NLP. The system in which I teach is a very advanced system. You see the changes are profound, it's easy. And what I'm doing now with Eutaptics is a professional system where each person who has a certificate of Eutaptics means they are an expert, they know what they're doing. So I just created a new standardization. Is it FasterEFT? FasterEFT plus professional.
Gotcha. To be like a master of,
Right.
of your program.
Yeah, because see, here's the weird thing is that you could go, you can go to anybody who hang a shingle on the wall and say, I'm EFT trained, or they went to my level 1. I did level 1 in 2 days. Now it's a 7-day course. And so a 2-day person does not know how the mind works, because I teach 95, 97% is the mechanics of how we create the problems. You can't get that in 2 days. So what I'm doing is I'm building a system that professionals will send their children to me. I mean, I have many psychologists, many doctors who will not only come for themselves, but they bring their children, their husbands, and ex-husbands because it works. And so I'm creating a new high standard.
Right.
Another high standard to where when you get a Eutaptics trained practitioner, you're getting someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And can people go to your site and find out about this as well and enroll in a certification?
FasterEFT.com.
FasterEFT.com. Now we're working on our new site where, all this stuff has evolved. I mean, there's been things that went on in 2015 and 2016 that encouraged us to be better. And that's what we did. We just upped the ante and really make it a system that is the best system, in my opinion, in the world. And that means, if you've seen my work at addictions, you see my work with pain, fears and phobias.
When you guys do work with folks in Hawaii, right? Where you go to the substance abuse facility?
Yeah.
Amazing. I really recommend our audience to go to his YouTube. Again, just type in Robert Gene Smith or FasterEFT or Eutaptics. Go to that, and again, about 1,300 videos. It's amazing. But the work, and I'd probably type in a search of recovery and come up with some of those.
You can type in Nick. If you go to my channel, FasterEFT Nick.
Man, when you walk them through, going through the process of literally filling the syringe and stuff, and watching them their bodies are just like, oh my God, it's sensory. You can sense the intense feeling that they have with that, and the work that you do to get them through that it's wild. It's amazing.
Yeah, this again, I've been, I started doing seminars in 2002 at a Unity church. I rented their facility, and they wanted weight loss, and I wasn't interested in weight loss. I wanted something juicy, like come to find out, weight loss has abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional trauma, addiction. It's all there. And that's how I understood how the mind works, how addictions work, how and why we do what we do, and how to dismantle it.
Right.
And so with the work that we do in rehabs, and it is profound. But see, there's many pieces to an addiction model. There's so many different elements. And so we do address every one that we can.
Well, and each person's neural network has different elements to it, different memories, and on their lifetimes. And so, yeah, it's such a beautiful thing. Gosh, Robert, this hour has gone so fast.
Yes, it's been so interesting.
It's been so much fun to talk with you. I just want to remind everybody again, this is Robert Gene Smith. He is the developer, the owner, the creator of FasterEFT and Eutaptics. And you can go to his website at FasterEFT.com. His YouTube channel has lots and lots of videos that you can watch. If you had just some final thoughts that you wanted to share with folks before we sign off today, what would you say?
I would say this, learn how to love yourself, and loving yourself is going inside yourself and a change in the memories that hurt you. Rewrite those memories. Be safe with yourself, be kind to yourself, and learn how to practice being alone with yourself. Learn how to change the things that hurt you. Learn how to manifest and create a better life by merely operating from your creative self, and change anything that's unpleasant. And once you change these pieces inside you, the world will change with you. Learn how to love yourself inside yourself. And just remember, if anyone outside you bother you, realize it's you responding to them. Change that piece.
Change that piece. That's great.
Thank you very much, Robert.
All right, thank you.
We've really enjoyed this hour. It's very nice of you to come and talk with us. It'd be great to talk with you again sometime. And
Sounds good.
yeah, we'll keep watching your videos. So we advise our people listening in to do that too.
Make sure you tap along. That'll benefit you greatly.
I know.
Absolutely, tap along. Absolutely, yeah. And to our audience, of course, we always appreciate you very much. And tune in next time.
All right.
See you
Peace,
next
guys.
time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Robert. Have a good day.
All right, bye.